Joining me now, House of Delegates member Nick Freitas, also candidate for Congress, 7th District. Nick, great to have you, man.
Hey, great to be on, John. Thank you.
Lots to talk about, little time. Let's get right to the Iranian strike that the president did, killing General Soleimani, taking him out. Pompeo yesterday saying, look, if you're going to surround our embassy, we've had enough. We're not going to hurt the Iranian people, but we're going to take out their decision makers. If you retaliate, you're a dead man. That's basically what he said yesterday. Then, Nick, last night, the Iraqi parliament voting to kick out U.S. troops. What say you?
Well, I think when it comes to the president's actions, I think what the Iranian government, especially the Quds Force, and I remember serving over in Iraq on my combat tours, and we had to deal a lot with terrorist organizations and militia organizations that were backed by the Iranian government, specifically the Quds Force. So this is not the first time that they have actually engaged not just in terrorism, but terrorism directed at the United States. And an attack on our embassy is an attack on U.S. soil. So the bottom line is the Quds Force, they deserve this retaliation. Mm-hmm. And I think you worded it perfectly, John. This is not, we're not looking to have a fight with the Iranian people. But the same leaders which have gone after the United States and our forces, the same leaders in Iran which have gone after the Iraqi people in many instances, and people really all over the country with the terrorist attacks that they've sponsored, those are the people that will pay for those decisions, not the Iranian people. And I think the president has actually made that very clear, both in the way he's targeted this General Soleimani, and then the way that he's talked about potentially future retaliation should Iran decide to attack us again. But I do think they need to understand that any provocation against the United States is going to be met with force. And that's not a threat toward the Iranian people. That's a threat toward the leadership, which we understand not only comes after our people, but oppresses their own people as well.
Okay, so the Democrats criticizing this almost in lockstep. I haven't heard one Democrat basically saying, look, this was the right thing to do. This guy's a terrorist. He's a murderer. Actually, check that. Jay Johnson, the former Homeland Security Director for President Obama, came on yesterday. We played that clip, and Secretary Johnson said that the president was well within his legal authority and, in his mind, made the right move. So that's there has been one. But meantime, the Iraqi parliament last night voting to basically oust U.S. troops. Pompeo saying, well, we're not going to heed that. How do you not heed what the Iraqi government wants to do? And why don't we just say, okay, and get our people the hell out of there?
Oh, no, John, I'm with you. On that one, if the Iraqi government wants U.S. forces to return home, I think that's a great idea. I would like to bring U.S. forces home from Iraq. I think for too long we've had to fight a war that at this point we don't see any sort of clear objective by our forces staying in the region. And when you have a country that says that we don't want your forces there, we would certainly demand somebody to respect that of us. And so I would respect it to them, not to mention the fact that I don't want one more U.S. service member getting hurt on Iraqi soil when the Iraqi government is treating us this way. The one area in Iraq where, again, if they wanted us to still have some troops for security that I would certainly consider would be the Kurdish Autonomous Zone. But other than that, if they don't want us there, I think we should be all too happy to bring our boys home.
Well, I mean, I don't know why, and I'm not sure where Secretary Pompeo was going with this, but you're right. I mean, if they don't want us there, why are we there in harm's way? It makes no sense. If they think they can figure it out, and they have the security forces, and they're comfortable with their military, and they can hold the government together, good luck. I mean, I don't think that we can get out of there fast enough. So I think we should take their invitation and get out. So I'm 100% with you on that. Nancy Pelosi yesterday filing papers basically wants to condemn, obviously, the president's action, but also invoking the War Powers Act, saying that the president now shouldn't be able to do anything without conferring with Congress. Well, that's unconstitutional. But the hypocrisy of this, Nick Freitas, is that I have been calling for a vote on a new AUMF for 10 years. Boehner wouldn't do it. Well, first of all, Pelosi wouldn't do it in 2006 to 2010. Then Boehner wouldn't do it. Then Ryan wouldn't do it. Now Pelosi's not doing it again. Only a handful of people have been calling for this. It always gets dumped in rules and killed. They don't want to have the debate on the floor. So if they don't want to do a new AUMF, what are they talking about?
Well, that's what it really comes down to, is that this is contradictory and it's hypocritical. And the one thing, John, like you said, both parties have been guilty of this when it comes to the War Powers Act, when it comes to the authorization of use of military force. We don't have enough congressional involvement, and when it comes to declaring war, I think Congress has completely abdicated its responsibility with that respect. But now they want to try to make, again, they're seeing an opportunity to try to make everything President Trump's fault. And that's the part where there's just complete intellectual dishonesty. So, no, I agree with you. I do think we need another vote on the AUMF. I do think we need to be a lot more careful before we send U.S. forces into harm's way. But when you have a situation where U.S. soil has been attacked, we do have the authorization to retaliate. Now, again, that retaliate is not unlimited. It doesn't mean we can start another, whole war with Iran and send armored divisions over there. But by the same token, for Nancy Pelosi to act as if this sort of action, this sort of retaliatory strike, once they had been actively engaging and attacking our embassy, is somehow unwarranted, that's problematic. Again, now what we do next, especially if there's a further commitment of U.S. forces or military power, yes, I do expect Congress to be a part of that process. But I don't buy any of the arguments that Nancy Pelosi is using, or her, all too politically convenient way of bringing something like this up when they've ignored it for, how decades now.
If President Obama did the exact same thing at the exact same time under that exact same circumstances, do you think the Democrats would have reacted this way?
No, I don't. I think they would have been spiking the football and talking about how tough they were. And that's part of the problem with this, is that, right, again, I will fully admit that both sides have been guilty of this over the last several decades, and it is time for us to follow more of a constitutional process. But again, there's a difference between sending armies off to war, which is what we've been doing now for over 2 decades in the Middle East, and a pinpointed and retaliatory strike in response to an attack on U.S. soil. So let's differentiate between the two. Let's not try to pretend that this is somehow outside of the norm. Let's acknowledge that there is a problem with Congress not being more involved when it comes to sending troops over into war, but that's not a President Trump problem. That is a problem that's existed for some time now within the United States government, and yes, we do need to fix it, but this action should not be the impetus. It should be the other problems that we've had.
Have you heard a peep out of Abigail Spanberger on this?
I haven't. I haven't. And again, it's someone who, as much as she kind of boasts about her background with respect to intelligence and
where is she?
National defense,
right,
I would expect her to be a little more out front, and I would expect her, especially with what she's talked about her background, to certainly understand the threat the Quds force in Iran poses. Because I can tell you, those of us who are actually on the ground fighting the terrorist organizations that were backed by Quds certainly understand it. And John, I could sit here and go on with you about EFPs and other different devices that the Iranians were specifically using to help, that were, quite frankly, highly effective roadside bombs,
mm-hmm,
highly effective rocket systems that they were using and
mm-hmm,
supplying to people that go directly after U.S. and Iraqi forces.
mm-hmm.
So, again, I have no sympathy for this Quds Force commander because he was a terrorist.
We're with Nick Freitas. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. Nick Freitas, House of Delegates member, Republican from Culpeper, going to the General Assembly. That's convening, I think, on Wednesday, right, Nick? So we have big coverage for that. And Nick, also a candidate for U.S. Congress 7th District in Virginia to take on Abigail Spanberger. Nick Freitas, the best candidate, in my opinion, position to beat Spanberger. The nomination will be decided in a convention. You think that's going to be in April or May, Nick?
April or May. We're still not sure yet. We should know here in the next couple weeks.
Okay, so it's going to be April or May. If you're in the 7th District and if you want to get involved in the convention and vote for Nick Freitas, you have to sign up as a delegate. So the best thing to do is go right to the Freitas campaign. Go to nick4va.com, nick4forva.com. There'll be a sign-up thing there. They'll get in touch with you after that. But look, Nick, I'm telling everybody, 2020 is the year of you got to get off the sidelines, right? I mean, it's about mobilization. The left is doing a phenomenal job of mobilizing their people. But look, you saw in Virginia, new poll out, Biden ahead by Trump by 4. That's what we got beaten Virginia by in 2016. Trump ahead of everybody else. Virginia's in play. Nick, I've got a minute and a half. Let's get to the General Assembly. I got a minute and a half.
No, I think this year is going to be the year where people understand that all the things that we talked about, that if Democrats took power, they would actually try to do, was the case, that we were accurate. We weren't being hyperbolic. We weren't just being fearmongers. When we said they were going to come and try to take our guns, they lied to us for the last several years, saying that nobody wanted to take our guns. That was their refrain. They said it over and over and over again. And then as soon as they got power, that's exactly what they went for. But it goes so much deeper than even that. I think that's an issue right now that people are mobilizing behind. But what they're going to recognize as soon as this session gets going is that there is something here for everybody. Because when it comes to economic policy, when it comes to just an absolutely radical abortion policy, and then, of course, as we've already seen, when it comes to the Second Amendment, they're going to take these next 2 years, and as Democrat Alfonso Lopez says, we're going to accomplish the work of a lifetime in 2 afternoons. They have been waiting for this moment. They haven't had it for over 26 years. And in 26 years, the Democratic Party has changed a great deal. And you see that when you look at the presidential debates with Elizabeth Warren, with Bernie Sanders. You see that when you look at some of the comments being made by certain members of the House of Delegates in the Virginia Senate. So I think this is the year where people understand that they are deadly serious about pushing forward their agenda. It is a radical leftist agenda. And as I pointed out before, it's not a liberal agenda. It's an authoritarian agenda, because every single solution to a problem that they offer includes giving the government more power at the expense of individual liberty, giving the government more power at the expense of individuals' pocketbooks. They're going to tell you how to run your business. They're going to tell you how your child should be educated. They're going to tell you what guns you can own. And if you don't like it, they're going to threaten you with more money in the budget to come in and set up forces in order to, again, like you see with the governor, he put in, it was 18 more positions just for anti-gun law enforcement. So
it's coming. It's coming.
Well, and that's the thing is, I know a lot of people are upset, and I'm thrilled with how many people have been showing up to board and supervisors meetings. But we need you to get registered to vote. We need you to get serious about this, and we need you to get plugged in with organizations and representatives that you think are doing a good job defending your values, defending your liberty, defending your property. And if you can do that, then I think these next 2 years are going to be very instructive. It's a great time for us to organize. I think it gives us an opportunity to do very well in 2020 and send a very loud message that we do not want to go the direction that the Democrats are trying to take us. And it sets us up for success in 2021 so we can actually take back the General Assembly and hopefully the governor's mansion.
Well, and as I said in the House, you can't stop them. Whatever they want to do, you guys don't have the votes. There's no coalition to put together in the House. There's no moderates that are going to combine with some of the Republicans. It's over. They're going to pass everything they want. Only hope is that some of this stuff is stopped in the Senate where some cooler heads might prevail. Morrissey's going to stop some of it. He's not going to stop guns because he's with them on that. And I got to roll. I got to bounce. But listening to us right now was Clark Mercer, who was the chief of staff for Governor Northam, who's going to sign all this stuff, just as you said. You just criticized him. And he said, John, remind Nick Freitas to turn in his paperwork for his congressional nomination on time. Just wanted to throw that out there, Nick.
Just so you know, you can let him know, too, that we will make sure we get our paperwork on time. We certainly appreciate that advice. But, gosh, it sure was good winning by 14 points without even being on the ballot the last time. The Democrat-controlled State Board of Elections worked to keep me off of it.
Nick Freitas answers Clark Mercer. This is why I have the best radio show in America. Nick, thanks for being with us. We're going to see you Tuesday, Wednesday at the General Assembly. My best to your family and your wife.